Hello techies, I'm Divya here. On behalf of CyberBrainer, don't you think the world of tech is evolving faster than ever? Now is the perfect time to dive in and build the skills that will take you places. With CyberBrainer, we are putting you in the driver's seat of your own future. We at CyberBrainer don't just teach your interest. We believe that knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge that truly sets you apart. Whether you're diving into data science, mastering artificial intelligence, or exploring the world of cybersecurity, our courses are designed to give you the skills that matter. So let's jump into the session and make the future yours today. Thank you.
I start the database now. Let me start the database. You are able to see my screen, right? I do see your screen. Once you can basic and start the database. Like in the new white, it's not smooth. The new is the new application. We develop the new application. Suppose you look at the issue. The new application is talking to JMSs, publishing message to JMS. The same new application is connecting to the database. The same new application has connectivity to VMQ. The same new application is sending some messages to external HTTP application or listening HTTP client. To communicate to this external system, new application required some libraries. Libraries is a software file. To talk to database, it requires database library. To talk to JMS, it requires JMS library. To talk to HTTP server, it requires HTTP library. To talk to VM, it requires VM library. These files we call as a technical dependencies. Why you call dependencies? Because your new application is dependent on this library. You got it. No, your new application is not able to talk to any of the systems. These dependencies are as a jar file actually. Jar file is an extension of a dependency. Like a database is a database jar file. JMS file. Jar files are required to run your new application. Fork. Then the second part is where these jar files exist. Are we going to store all the jar files in new applications? New applications in a sense while developing. But of course in your AnyPoint Studio, as you said, AnyPoint Studio. One small basic and we move to the database. The basic is like new application has dependent on this, right? That we discussed, right? That's right. And all of these library dependencies are jar files. You're asking some questions. And the jar file is usually based on Java. Based on Java. Now the question is if you are developing a new application. Right. Now you are in a development stage. Right. What happens is when you develop a new application, you need to build the new application. After development, you need to build the new application. You had the term build. Woman. Build means you're lucky, you run it. It's like build, like means run. Build means what it do is, it will compile all the source code. Compile all the source code and get all the dependencies, and it will package the application as a deployable artifact. It adds all the dependencies and it packages that one. This package I can deploy to the Mule server. The application we need to make this application as a deployable artifact. That process is called build process. Got build process. We develop the application. You're saying that we have to make the application. You have to use a build process to build the application. And when it's built, it becomes what? What do you say? Say that again one more time. Deployable artifact. Deployable artifact means that is the package we can. Mule server can accept that package. Right? How the Mule applications are built are using a tool called Maven. Maven is the tool is used to build the Mule applications. Build means what's the process in the build. What the process in the build is, we need to add all the dependencies to the job to the Mule application. We need to manage the dependencies. What are dependencies? Dependencies means the library files which are required to talk to the external systems. If these dependencies are missing, Mule can't be able to talk to that system. We need to add all these required job files and we need to package that Mule application. Then only the Mule application will run in the server. If the dependency is not added to the package, no, the Mule can't talk to that server. You won't be able to run. Only able to run. Let me 1 second. This thing gets to the head because it really is very important to understand what's happening behind the scenes. And that's really what I really like about you, that you put all that together. For Mule application, when you have a Mule application, you need to build. And when in that build process, it means that the application will use Maven to build all the dependencies right. All the library files the application needs. That this will become a deployable. What do you call that? Article. For the Mule server to run, to from your server right, to execute this application. Correct. Got. This one is comfortable to design and try to think. That is not suitable. Let's see. It's not proper working. That's it. Now we see the Maven, how Maven works. Maven has one file called POMSML file. POM stands for Project Object Model. POM. Every Mule application you create, that is a Maven-based application, and it comes with the POM file. If you see any Mule application, unfortunately, this is a different machine. I need to open the Mule application again. One moment. It takes a little time. Every Mule application ships along with the POM file. POM file is a very important file you need to understand. All basic CI/CD process, all automated deployments, all based on the POM file. That is a core part. You know you need to have a good understanding about the POM file. Now what this POM file contains? It's basically XML file. It contains the dependencies information basically. I'll show you the POM file. Even if you have, any project open, you can have the POM file. I'm looking right now actually. If you open, there is some section called dependencies. If you open a POM file for the status project, what you build, right? What you publish and consume the message from the active Mule, right? If you open the POM file of that project, you can able to see the active Mule dependencies. 1, 2. This one I'm looking, it has 4 dependencies. One is HTTP dependency because you have HTTP in listen also, right? Therefore, HTTP dependency is there. I couldn't tell what dependency is for, but all I can tell is that it has the 4 dependencies. Let me add my sec. Oh, this one has. Oh, you're right. I see. One of the dependencies, and it says that the Mule HTTP connector. You are using HTTP listener, HTTP something. Therefore, HTTP dependency is created. Alright, if I have to expand. No, you got a doubt. In the POM file, we define the dependencies. This one has. We define dependencies. This means this jar file is required to run this project. That's what you are dealing in the dependency. Right. Then where actually the physical jar file exists. In the dependency information you can able to see the 3 fields. One is artifact ID, group ID and version. That's right. Artifact ID, group ID and version. Group ID is like Group ID is like from which company, or I know from which department this jar file is generated. Who giving this jar file? From which company and which department is that company? You can find org mule connector, something like that. I see org mule connector, one of them. The other one called org Apache active MQ. But that jar file is given by Apache. And ActiveFact ID defines actual name of the jar file. The group ID is the company who provided the library. Let the company, and inside the company department is the C. If you find org mule inside the mule company, the connectors department is giving this library file. If it says org mule connectors, right, means that in the mule company, the connectors group is there internally. Connectors department. That department is providing this jar file. I see or packed Miku. That means active Miku department provided this. That is the group ID. ActiveFact rate is the actual name of the jar file. And the version is which version of jar file it is. It denotes the version. Even if we are building the Mule application, that is also, on top of our Mule Pomade XML file, you can see group ID, artifact ID. You can mention. If you go top of the top right hand slide, you can find the group ID artifact means. If you're developing this component, whatever Mule component developing company, you have to give your company name over here. To which company you're developing this component. Say that one more time. If you're developing what? See if you're in your Pomade XML file. Let me one thing. I understand that the library we use, we can tell who developed and who provided what department. That provided that. When you're doing a project for your company, do you? We don't do. Library files or jar files or dependencies. It's enterprise-wise. It's not something that I or you develop. It's not right. But we can also develop our applications. Like, you can develop this application and internally, you can use this dependency to your other applications. I understand that. I know that we can develop Mule applications. But normally the API developer guy or Mule developer person, they don't develop a library. We don't develop a library. We use. I totally agree. But you can develop one application and you can use your application as a dependent to that application. That's right. In that case, you need to tell the group ID, artifact ID of your application. Right. For that, you need to mention that on the top of the Pomade XML file, there are fields called group ID, artifact ID version. Right. You mentioned over there. That is one part. And second most important part is where actually these jar files exist when you are developing the application. You open your brand new laptop. You just purchase a laptop, brand new laptop. You just install a Mule. Nothing is there in the laptop. It's a blank laptop. Now you started developing the Mule application. Then you need the jar file, right? You need the HTTP jar file, the ActiveMP jar file. Then how you get those jar files? Right. That's the question. For May 1, right? May 20 use one central repository in the cloud. Internet, there is a repository. There is a repository in the internet. It contains all the jar files. It is called Maven repo. This information is also there in your permit X. First time you develop application, you develop Mule application in Anypoint Studio and you ran the Mule application first time, assume. There is a Mule application and you run the Mule application. Once you run the Mule application, what happens is it sees the permit XML file. In the permit XML file, you define the dependencies. These are the dependencies required to run the Mule application. It sees those dependencies available in your local repository or not. In your machine, there is some local repository. You see the local repository. Is actual local repository exists or not? If it exists, the dependencies in the local repository exists or not. If there is no local repository, there is no dependencies. What happens is it downloads the required jar files from the May1 repository, May1 central repository, and stores those jar files in your local repository. Then your Mule application will point the jar files in the local repository. Does it do this automatically, or you have to say download it from the repository? No, automatically. First time only. For example, second time you run the application, what happens? You check the local repository. Yes, the jar files exist in the local repository. It won't contact the Mule Central repository. What I was thinking is that if you end up using another library that you might need for your application, do you have to say like download that for the Maven? Exactly. Download for the Maven. Or does it do automatically, or the application or the Mule will do automatically? Once you know that you don't have that library locally, does it go out there on the internet and get it there from the Maven? Yes, automatically. You need not do anything. Just you mention that permit.xml file, the dependency section, that's it. That's it. Alright. You see the local repository, if not available, it downloads that jar file from the Maven Central repository. That moment, if you don't have internet, your build will fail. Because internet is required to download, right? In the Windows machine, if you want to see the local repository, then you can see your go to Windows C drive. In the C drive, there is a folder called users. You are using Windows machine. I'm using Windows machine. Windows machine, right? You can find the users folder in the C drive. I think I can do it. C drive users. In that you can find something like Adam with your name, one username. You can see one folder, right? If you go inside that folder, you can find something like M2 folder. This. If you go inside the M2 folder, you can find something called repository. That's right. This is called your local repository. All your jar files, stored in this local repository. For example, if you have some, you will come argmal. Sorry, argmal. Stores with the. I see a lot for J. Is arg. I have a question. This is not related to this, but a few months ago, 4 months ago, there was some kind of a vulnerability in Loveport. Yes, in Loveport. At the time we have to upgrade to the latest and all that stuff. And the question is that now that, and I don't, because I'm using a work laptop, I don't want to create some kind of vulnerability. How do I know that my Love.j is the latest? You can see you can. You need to make sure your Love.j is latest, right? How can I make sure that? Right now I can see that if I, under repository, it has a Love.j. On the Love.j, when I open it, it says 1.2.12. Let me check. I can go to the Maven repository. This is a Maven repository. The Maven repository. Let me check with Love.j. This Love.j is. Since February, just 2 months back. It is the right one. You are seeing. No, I have a 1.2. See, it has 2 vulnerabilities. It has 3 vulnerabilities. You are seeing right here Love.j core library. There are some wonderful to define over here. If you don't want these vulnerabilities, you need to make sure your version is this one. That you can upload in PongSmall file also. In your PongSmall file, you can find Love.j dependency. Are you able to see? Let me see. Let me open my PongSmall file. Once, go to it. I am going to add a new one. Where are you seeing the Love.j version, Adam? In the folder, if you go to the repository folder, there it doesn't work because we were using the machine quite wrong. Let me see my repository. If you go back to the repository, go to the repository folder, and then you see Love.j. Directly, you can find Love.j from here. There's a folder called Love.j. I saw it there. Right there in the middle. In the middle, I see that Love.j. Oh, my Love.j is not updated. Mouse order version 1.217. I have a turtle alert. The top one. What's Love.j code? Love.j implementation. What's this? Love.j. This is a 2018 version. Mine is the top one. I know that's what I have. Sick. Let me see this version. That is not what you see. I used to do this in my work, where I used to go Apache website. Don't worry. If you go to this version, that is not valid. ARG Apache logging love port J. Let me go to ARG once in my repository. Where is ARG man? ARG Apache logging love port J. And inside the love port J core. Currently latest love port J core. This is the one we are using. Don't worry on that. Alright, let me check. Let me go there. Go to this folder. I want to double check that. Under repository. It's ARG, right? Logja and logic code. And then you can find C like versions, right? The latest versions only, right? This is what we downloaded. First of this gen. This one. Log4j core version. I think we're good. I have a 27.1. This laptop I didn't use actually. Today you do internet issue by using this laptop. Maybe this housing some older versions. Don't worry on that. You can remove that folder if you want. If you don't want, if you have any doubt in that, you can remove that older version. You mean like in here 2.2.5? You can delete that. You can delete that. See, if any of your older applications are using the jar files, they won't work. Because they are dependent on the jar file, right? They won't work. Hope you got some idea about this thing now. You say in here it's safe to delete all the files. I don't know how critical your applications are to delete. Your application is wrong. Don't blame me. I have the latest one. That should be good. Alright, I think we can continue. Thank you. You're welcome. These are the dependency jar files. See, in my Mule app, in Anypoint Studio, I have 10 applications, right? 10 to 12 applications. Maybe here I have 6 applications. All the applications we use the jar files from the local repository. You don't need to have a separate set of jar files for each application. Let's see. Then you can reuse those jar files, and when building they get the jar file from this local repository and they bundle that and they may package into a packageable, deployable artifact. Those are all things done by this Maven. See, this Maven has the name of this jar file. The name of the project is this project. And I can mention some properties, some repositories over here. This is Anypoint repository. That's about the Maven, and going forward, we see when deployment cease. We deploy to the Maven, then you understand completely about Maven. You hope you've got some basic idea about the Maven, right? It's the one that and before the Mule application to work, like when we say one application. When the project, before it does everything, is the one that makes sure that we have all the dependencies and that the application can run successfully. If we don't have it in all those libraries, all those dependencies, nothing's going to work. That's why we need a Maven. Fantastic. Adam, you're a fantastic. Good understanding. Thank you. I appreciate you. Next thing is, let me do one simple application. New object. Some weird name DB to JMS. Let me configure one simple Mule application to talk to database. You can show Michael. I'm comparing some path like /d, b, and I want to put it in the database and get some information from the database. For that, we have a database connector. Go to this component, planet, and type database. If you type database, you can find all the database related connectors. The bunch of characters you get. And based on your operation, you need to use that connector. If you want to just to query the database and get the reports, you use the select character. If you want to insert the insert you want to delete bulk, insert bulk. They are different, different reach operation. That's right. I want to just put the database for that. I am using this select component. Database, I click on database into configure database. You can tell where actually your database is located. Connector configuration. And we need to select it. What database you are connecting to. There be Microsoft SQL Server, Microsoft MySQL Oracle. These are, some databases most people use. If you want to use the Postgres or any other database, you need to set up the generic connection. Generic connection for any other kind of IB, MDB2 or Postgres. There are several databases out there. Right? If you don't find the database on the list, you need to use the generic connection. I'm using MySQL. I'm selecting the MySQL connection. Like I said, it requires library to talk to the database, right? Just know, we discussed. That's right. We need to add the libraries. Library, I can configure it. And here 3 things. You can. If you already has library included in the any point, sure you can use add recommend libraries. Studio also added. Or else if a jar file is available in your local machine, in your C drive or D drive, any folder with jar file is available. You can use local file. You can add it. Yesterday, we add the jar file using local file. You remember. Yesterday also JMS, we require the jar file with the library file. We go to the Appium2 download folder and we add it to the jar file, right? That's right. That's right. Or else we can add the Maven dependency. It retrieves the Maven server, Maven repository. Let me add from Maven. I added the library file required, and next I need to view where the database is running, in which host it is running. In my machine locally, it is running some local host. If it is running a network, you need to give the IP address. And 32.6. Let me connect one moment. What's that? I see. I have few databases in my school. I usually use a database called MuleSoft for Mule applications. And there is some, let me use a rateable. I guess some implies 1 sec. Adam, you have any database installed on your machine? I don't think. You can install or you can use the cloud database also in the cloud. You can available. MySQL is available on the cloud. Is that right? That would be nice. If you could show me. This one site called Cloud Clusters. But it's free. You can use for 1 week and you need to receive a different email if you want to use. Cloud Clusters. Cloud Clusters. Even you can use this Amazon RDS also. That is also good. But sometimes it is getting some issue for me. Go to Cloud Clusterio. You can register yourself and create some MySQL database. And do you think that's valid for a week? That's valid for a week. And if you are expired, you need to register again with different email ID. But you will be lost the data. Anyway, we are using for testing purpose also. That is fine. Or, if I'm thinking maybe I don't know. Maybe I need to install that. I have some database like I can connect to my work. And I think it might be. What I'm thinking might be is that I create the I don't know, maybe I install a mic. What is that called? MySQL. If you have any restrictions, but to connect to work database, in that case you can use a cloud database. If you don't have any restriction, that's fine. Cloud One is the perfect solution, but I hate that every week we have to create a new account. We need to pay that. Let me see why it is around $10 per month. You can take it if it is cheaper. I don't know. I need to check the commercial value of the database. If it is minimal, then take that license and use for a training purpose. I think the minimum that is available. See some billing. Let me see. You have some database or you can have Oracle. You have different database. You can create a database. Let me see the billing. How they bill? I don't know. They lost payment. I need to check. Oh, how the bill? See the billing, and if it is cheaper, then take the add-on. I mean that I can create any table like Oracle SQL. MySQL PostgreSQL Server. Most of my database are SQL, some Oracle. But for this exercise, if I could do SQL on my SQL is same, but that will be nice. Alright, I'll look into this and find out. If not, we'll practice it for 1 week and practice 1 week. That's done because only you have one time. Afterwards, nothing special in this. The browser not able to render that data. Therefore, what I'm doing is I'm transforming the mission that is coming from the database into the system format. What I'm doing is, in this transformation component, one said, this mission is quite slow. Therefore, I stopped using this mission internet issue and I'm changing to JSON and what I need to transform the payload, right? The payload that is coming from the database. I transform to JSON and that JSON I'm routing to my HTTP client. Right. Let me quickly run this thing. This is here. I could have opened the postman that's in Stargate post 881 / given path as DB and I will try to get the information. I got the employee records as a JSON, right? These are the records actually in the database, right? These. I got a JSON. Now you don't want to get all the records. You want to pass a parameter over here. You want some parameterized records like word class, right? With that, you could use a word clause, right? Word clause. Yes, exactly what happens is from the client. I will pass the employee name which I want to see. I want to only get that employee. I don't want to get all the employees. For that, I want to configure my query with a word clause where what's that employee. I will take employee name, emp name, where emp name is equal to. I am giving like some placeholder, emp name. See, this is some sort of placeholder. It's not actually, it doesn't exist. That's right. There is something called input parameters you can find over here, right? You need to map the exact name to this parameter in this section. I come over here, I open one bracket, And for this employee name, what I am mapping is attributes, attribute as query params. Some emp name, right? Now saving it. It started and this time I want this Sai. I don't want any other employee. What I am doing is the query parameter emp name is equal to Sai, and if I send it, I will get only that record, right? Nice, because from database it retrieved based on the where clause. Alright, similarly, if you want to insert also, the query is same insert, but wherever fields you want to insert, right? That you can mention over here, and in the input parameters you need to mention those inputs. You can create more input parameters, and if you do that, you have to create another places, or you can do inside the places. You have to say same places only if you have say that. For example, like employee ID, if I want to for input primary, if I want to go by employee ID, employee name, and employee ID based on these two things, for example, no just employee ID, then in this case, no, what I am saying, I have here suggestion. We can say, for example, you can search either using employee name or employee ID, either with the employee name or employee ID. Then how do you write the query parameter? How do you write the SQL query for that? Select from employee where employee name. What I was thinking is that we will have a one for employee name and another one called employee IDs in the database, that if you see there is an employee, number is there and employee name is there, right? If you want to retrieve the employee based on employee number and employee name, in that case, where emp name is equal to emp name and number is equal to some colon, m. See, the problem with this is that is expecting two values exactly. But if we give them a choice for the customers, hey, you can. You can either search employee name or you can search. Or you can search the employee ID or employee IC. What I was thinking is that the where clause. In the clause, you have a column name, right? We want either the column name to say either employee name or employee ID. I don't know what I'm asking if it's double, but it's double. See from the input, right? What you are getting. You are giving employee name or employee ID. Sometimes you give employee name and sometimes you give employee ID. That's right. That's right. That's right. Let me do that one. You will understand the two. One more concept of the same time. There is something called choice. Choice, I got it. Choice. we need to give the condition over here. When condition means when we require to take this path and when we require take this path. That's right. When I'm giving these attributes, attributes dot, query params dot. Name not equal to null. If the employee name not equal to null, if employee name is given, it will take this path. I'll take one more path, something like added. You want to do another choice. That's good, 1 sec. Now I want one moment. You put the choice right. Before the select, now something attributes dot query params dot emp name not equal to. Sorry, copy this thing for this branch and give emp number not equal to null. And for this it needs to come up based on the employee name only. And I configure one more database component. I see database select put over here. This logger is no longer equal. Actually, loggers are not required as of now. In this, I'm counting the same database configuration and the query is also almost the same. Just I see I will change the where class only. M underscore no. Let me see the database column name M underscore override M underscore no. M open parenthesis. Empo attributes dot query primer dot. Looks good. Putting some empty logger over here at the last. Just now. Let me see this deploy. It is deployed now. It's not deployed. It's deploying. Yes, it's deployed now. If I give employee name like Sai, it will return self-start from employee parameter emp name. Employee underscore name. Yes, you have to say employee underscore name. Let me see what employee. I think that's fine. I think here it's fine. This thing I need to map like this, right? This thing has to match because this will go right. Even at the end, check here, right? This one has to match with this one. That is not a problem. Once it started. I got Psy right and instead of MPingo. Then you say equal to 1 any, this one 1868, something like this, is equal to 1868. I got that one right, nice. Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.